The purpose of this session, if I can just briefly explain before I introduce myself and the panel, is to share some reflections on the ILO Regional Policy Forum on Decent Work in Supply Chains, which took place yesterday and the day before, and to explore some practical challenges and innovations that support responsible supply chains in the Asia-Pacific region. So the way we're going to organize this panel is I'll make some short remarks of some observations from the International Labour Organization to give you a flavor of the discussion that happened in this forum. It was a forum that over 200 leaders attended, including governments, employer and worker representatives, as well as multilateral institutions and academics from across the region. And I'll give you some flavor of my readouts from that event. And then we're going to have a reflection from our panelists on behalf of workers and governments from their takeaways from the event. And then what we'd like to do is to show you give you a quick snapshot of some of the practices that were discussed at the event by showing you some very brief videos and some further questions, and give you an opportunity to make any reflections or comments that you will. So my name is Dan Rees. I'm the director of the Action Programme on Decent Work in Supply Chains, working for the International Labour Organization. To my left is Jerome Janssen, who's a Technical Service Director for National Wages and Productivity Commission of the Department of Labour and Employment in the Philippines. And to my right is Seville Okontunggalang, I hope I got that right, who is the General Secretary of the Confederation of the Mongolian Trade Unions. So that's us, and I'm just going to begin with a few reflections on the outcomes of what was a significant event for ILO and its constituents in the regions. So I think first I would say that the participants left the forum with a much clearer vision, shared vision and understanding of what our purpose is. And across the governments, employers and workers, and together with our development partners, multinational institutions and other contributors, there was a really strong consensus that resilient and equitable supply chains and decent work must be central to the strategies for inclusive growth in the Asia-Pacific region. Second, I think there is a really strong appetite and renewed momentum for regional cooperation, and this really came from everybody, with much of today's trade occurring within Asia itself. The conversation wasn't just about responding to international frameworks set elsewhere, important as that is, but the conversation was also about that the region has the capacity and the responsibility to shape a path towards resilient supply chains that deliver decent work and sustainable growth in response to the many trends that are shaping it. Thirdly, I think we identified opportunities to scale proven solutions. So our discussions underscored that across the Asia-Pacific regions, solutions are emerging that reflect the region's diversity. So for example, in Indonesia, targeted labor inspections have formalized thousands of workers in the palm oil sector. In Nepal, safety improvements in the tea industry helped businesses to secure access to new global markets and create added value for businesses and for the workers within them. And in Thailand, strengthened migrant worker participation in welfare committees at the workplace level led to greater inclusion in the workplace. So these were just some of the examples, and we'll show you some of these a little bit later in the event. Fourthly, participants emphasized the need for policy coherence, and this was another rich thread that ran through almost all the conversations. And the observation was that the progress in supply chains cannot be achieved simply focusing at one level. And when we observed that some interventions focus just at one level whether that be at the workplace or the sector or the national level. But the observation is we need greater alignment between workplace practices and rights improving on the ground, national reforms embedding those gains, as well as international and regional frameworks that reinforce them and help create the enabling environment. And only by ensuring coherence or greater coherence across those levels do we think progress could be sustained. And lastly is a sentiment that my colleagues and I from the International Labour Organization took from this event, that the forum itself is not an end, but it's a launch pad for future action, and that really was the sentiment in which we ended. What we shared here, what we shared in the event we'll be carrying forward into ILO's ongoing work at the country and regional level into supporting our constituents to achieve the results that they want to. And there was a clear commitment on behalf of the ILO to priorities that we will pursue in the coming 2 years. So I think taken together, these outcomes show that while challenges remain, the direction is clear, that supply chains are increasingly speeding up, reshaping, transforming the world of work in the region. And the key question we're focused on is whether this transformation will deliver decent work and protection and opportunity for all. I think it's fair to say the exchanges that we had and the commitments that we got and the strengths and partnerships that we got with our partner organizations as a result of building up to this event really give us reason to be optimistic that we can achieve at least some of that. So I hope that gives you a flavor of the discussion in general terms, but I think what's really interesting is to turn to my colleagues and really ask them for their reflections, what they took out of the event from the government perspective and the worker perspective. We did intend to have employers on this panel, but I'm afraid they're not able to attend. So, Jerome, can I turn to you for your observations?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dan. Good afternoon to everybody. It's my honor and privilege to represent the government sector in this forum. So Dan gave me 3 minutes to do some opening statement, but I feel that 3 minutes would not be enough to give my reflections about the 2-day policy dialogue organized by ILO on decent work and supply chain. It was a complete success, so congratulations to ILO for that activity. So several insights, perspectives, and actions were actually generated during that policy dialogue, but the most important thing that resonated with me was the firm resolve expressed by all 3 actors, the government, the workers, the employers, and of course our development partners, the ILO, to bring our acts together to be able to build resilient supply chains that deliver decent work, despite the many challenges that we are facing today: geopolitics, tension, trade disruptions, climate change, labor issues, and well, you name it, you have all the issues. But it is an indication, the commitment was an indication that we are on the right track in creating synergies between equitable growth and decent work. So what are the challenges now? The challenge is for us to keep the momentum going, to continue doing our role as partners for development, and to strengthen collaboration for us to be able to make real progress. As I mentioned in the forum, promoting decent work is not the sole responsibility of the government. It is a shared responsibility of the government, of the workers and unions, of the employers. The government can only do so much. We need to engage workers and employers for us to be able to develop and enforce rules and regulations, to build capacities, to achieve policy coherence that will create resilient, sustainable, and right-based economies. So what do we need to do? We need to strengthen tripartism and social dialogue so that we can ensure that productivity, competitiveness, and economic progress will go hand in hand with protection and promotion of workers' rights and welfare.
Thank you very much, Jerome. Sybil, can I turn to you to give your reflections on the event?
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. On the behalf of the workers group, I'd like to share a few key takeaways from the important 2 days forum which happened and today's forum on responsible business conduct and human rights due diligence in the supply chains. We have some key takeaways. First, from the workers group, we recognize that the Asian Pacific is the center of the global supply chain, but many workers, especially SMEs and informal sectors, still facing the challenges: low wages, unsafe working conditions, and limited legal protections. These workers are often left out during the process of the due diligence, and this must change these problems. And second, international labor organizations, especially freedom standards, especially freedom of associations and the right to collective bargaining must be at the heart of the all responsible business efforts. They are only for workers' concerns, the ILO standards, but shared tools, we think so, to achieve decent work and sustainable development. Low unionization caused by precarious contracts and in some cases anti-union practice remains a serious barrier. Third one is the while international framework like UN guiding principles and OECD guidelines are valuable, but voluntary tools are still not enough. We call for binding due diligence laws, and we support the creation of legally binding instruments for transnational corporations to ensure the real accountability. Fourth one is the growth in informality in supply chain is the serious threat, not only to workers, but to long business sustainability. So we need to extend social protection and support the transition from informal to formal work across the region. Finally, we urge to continue the leadership role in supporting tripartite dialogue and providing technical assistance. We urge the ILO to continue these activities to address supply chain challenges. At the same time, increasing union density will be critical to making tripartism truly effective. In the closing, if we are serious about a fair, resilient, and sustainable supply chains, we must put workers' rights, dialogue, and accountability at the center. And the workers' group is ready to work with you all of you, to make this vision is reality. And that's all.
Thank you very much. And with that, what we'd like to do now is just give you a flavor of some of the innovations and solutions that were discussed in the forum. And we thought a good way to do this is just to give you some very brief video clips of 3 different stories. And so we're going to start with, and these were just 2 minutes each. So, but we're going to start with a story from the Philippines. Sorry, from Indonesia.
In Indonesia's palm oil sector, labor inspectors are embracing a smarter way to drive lasting change. through strategic compliance planning to make better use of limited resources. This approach shifts the focus from random inspections to a holistic, targeted view of compliance across a supply chain. Mapping relationships between companies helps identify influential actors with the potential to trigger spillover effects across entire corporate families. Instead of inspecting one isolated worksite, inspectors focused on 5 strategically chosen companies connected across supply chains, reaching over 3,000 workers directly. This led to over 10,000 workers registering with Indonesia's National Social Security Agency, BPJS.
Dengan adanya kunjungan pengawas ketenagakerjaan, saya pribadi merasa kondisi kerja jadi lebih baik. APD sepatu boot yang biasanya diberikan sekali dalam setahun menjadi 2 kali dalam setahun. BPJS kesehatan saya semula ikut suami, sekarang didaftarkan perusahaan. Intinya kondisi kerja jadi lebih baik.
Standardized field guides also help inspectors prioritize key labor law and occupational safety and health violations, supporting the 2019 Presidential Instruction on Sustainable Palm Oil Production. These tools improved consistency and have made inspection processes more efficient.
Kawasan sejak JSTP kami lebih terarah, terstruktur dan lebih efektif dan efisien ya, dalam arti lebih cepat karena data-data sudah kita dapatkan, kemudian kita dapat masukan-masukan sehingga kita lebih fokus dalam menentukan kegiatan pengawasan ketenagakerjaan.
This strategic, data-driven approach is showing how well-targeted inspection, even with limited resources, can formalize workforces and improve conditions across Indonesia's vital palm oil sector.
So, a simple story about how innovating in labour inspection can help to formalise workers and then give them access to greater rights and greater protections in the workplace. Jerome, so can I ask you, I mean, and if I may say, I think the Philippines government has a reputation for innovation in labour inspection, and from your perspective, what are some of the strategies and institutional innovations that support labour law compliance or can promote formalisation?
Thank you, Dan. There are actually a lot of things that we can explore, but based on our experience, I can give you at least 3 things. Number 1 is through strategic compliance planning. Just like Indonesia, we have also started to adopt the ILO-promoted strategic compliance planning as an approach to improve our inspection system and to boost labor law compliance. It's actually a risk-based approach that allows us to prioritize and address significant risks and optimize resource allocation. So each year, we determine industries and sectors that are top priority for labor inspection. Each region, we have 17 regions in the Philippines. Each region identifies at least 3 industries that are subject to strategic compliance planning. These industries are the industries that are dominant in their particular region, industries that make a significant contribution to regional economic development. At the same time, these are industries whose workers are susceptible to labor rights violations. And the good thing about these plans is that these are not developed by the government alone, not developed by the inspectors alone. These are developed with the involvement of the tripartite partners, the workers and unions, the employers, and even related or concerned government agencies like local government unit. So we have actually a lot of strategic plans in a year. We have plans in the mining sector, in the agriculture, in construction, in fishing, and even in business process outsourcing. So if you notice, these are industries that are very much part of supply chain. And these plans actually outline a mix of regulatory and developmental approach to promote decent work and responsible business conduct. The regulation, of course, is the enforcement. The developmental approaches include communication interventions, political interventions, and educational interventions. So these plans seek to address common issues like, of course, non-compliance with minimum wages, issues on occupational safety and health standards, non-coverage of social welfare benefits, and many issues affecting the workers. If I can give some specific example, in the northern part of the Philippines, which is the Mindanao region, we actually developed a strategic compliance plan, which is part of a long-term plan, no? And it's actually an output of the ILO project, RISK project, the ILO Resilient, Inclusive, and Sustainable Supply Chain project in the aquaculture industry. And so the plan contains strategies that seek to improve compliance to labor, to social, and to food safety standards. There are also activities that seek to improve skills development and mechanisms that will improve productivity and competitiveness. No? There are activities that seek to enhance mechanisms that will transform informality to formality, and strategies and activities that strengthen social dialogue in that sector, the aquaculture industry. So to facilitate the achievement of all these objectives, a local tripartite, industry tripartite councils was actually established to help or to engage workers and employers to help in achieving all the objectives of the plans. And of course, ultimately, the end goal is for the sector, the industry, to become the leading aquaculture producer, hopefully not only in the Philippines, but in the region, Asia-Pacific region, or around the world. That's number one. And number two, still on the inspection system, we have what we call the technical and advisory visit. No? This is an important developmental component of our inspection system, wherein we provide technical assistance and orientation to workers in micro enterprises. Instead of doing the usual or conducting the usual inspection, we assist them in complying with and understanding labor laws and occupational safety and health standards. The goal is for them to, or at least to encourage voluntary compliance and to ensure that workers are protected even in small-scale enterprises and working environment. Of course, there are a lot of challenges encountered. For example, some of them are not actually interested to participate because these are small enterprises with workers less than 10. No? So they do not want to close their business or stop their operations just to attend to an orientation. But what we do is that we incentivize their participation to these activities. No? So we have actually some livelihood programs that we offer to them. We have adjustment measures programs that we offer to them. We give them productivity interventions. We teach them how to be more productive. So it's more of incentivizing rather than full compliance first. So our inspectors, they visit the enterprises, and then they are assisted to do some self-assessment through a tab checklist. And if there are some deficiencies, they are assisted to develop an action plans which they need to implement or carry out for a period of 3 months, to rectify labor deficiencies if there are, and to do some strategies, which include not only enforcement, but some developmental strategies like improvement of productivity, as I mentioned, compliance with occupational safety and health programs, and even social security programs. So why are we doing this? Because we saw the need to boost compliance of micro-enterprises to labor laws and standards, because micro-enterprises are dominant business forms in the Philippines. In fact, there are more than a million micro-enterprises in the Philippines, and they are critical and crucial to employment and economic activities in our country, particularly in the countryside. So by helping them, by boosting their compliance to labor standards, we believe that it will help improve their business competitiveness and their business performance. And most important of all, it will help them facilitate their full integration into the supply chain. So that's number 2, and the last one is number 3, which I actually forgot to mention this during the ILO forum. No? Number 2 is the alignment of our national laws with international standards and framework. So as a government, it is our responsibility to initiate aligning our national laws and practices with international standards and frameworks progressively. In our case, it took us more than 5 years to ratify ILO Convention 81. This is the Labor Inspection Convention. Because of some gaps that we have to address, like, for example, the inadequate number of inspectors, the need to improve inspector capacity, and so many other issues. Until 2023, we were able to finally ratify ILO Convention 81. Of course, with the help during the ratification, or even before the ratification process. So it is actually a reaffirmation of our commitment to strengthen labor inspection system to ensure fair, decent, safe, and secure working condition. And why it is important? Because aside from protecting workers' rights, it also promotes sustainable enterprises, and it attracts ethical trade and investment. So these are just 3 innovations that we are currently doing in the Philippines with respect to labor compliance. But to reiterate, I'd like to reiterate that economic activities, we believe, must always be balanced with protection and promotion of workers' rights. Respect for labor standards actually plays a significant role in facilitating improvements in productivity and economic performance. And so, therefore, it is imperative that efforts to create an enabling environment for business and supply chains must be predicated with compliance to labor laws and regulations. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. And for the 3 excellent examples. And I think One of our observations in discussion over the last few days is the challenge of dealing with rights holders in the informal sector, who of course are much more likely to be migrant, often much more likely to be women. They face multi-sectional challenges to realizing rights, and the importance of formalizing workers in the workplace to bring them under the protection of laws, but also extend social protection, access to protection from organizations, trade unions that can represent them. And so that challenge to get into formal sector employment, and actually there are very comparatively few examples of this, and I think Jerome, you provided a couple of really excellent examples, which provide rich learning for other states. And the importance, I guess, in a forum like this is sort of access to formal work not just brings access to social protection, much more likely that you're in a safer job with safe work and better working conditions and wages, but we also know from our work that there's knock-on effects to access to the rights of education and health and civil and political rights. So I think great examples. So we want to just show another story of change, and this time coming from Thailand.
In 2015, Thailand's seafood industry faced a turning point when the European Union issued a yellow card due to concerns over illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, as well as labor abuses aboard its fleet. Following this formal warning, Thailand undertook a comprehensive overhaul of its seafood supply chain, supported by the ILO's EU-funded Ship-to-Shore Rights Southeast Asia program. These efforts not only targeted fisheries, but also addressed conditions in seafood processing factories. The processing industry took steps to improve labor standards and working conditions for its largely migrant labor workforce. Worker welfare became a priority with seafood good labor practices developed and implemented at the factory level.
การที่สมาคมทำเรื่อง Seafood GLP กับสมาชิกนะคะตลอดเวลา 8-9 ปีที่ผ่านมานี้เราเห็นความเปลี่ยนแปลงกับสมาชิกพอสมควรเลยนะคะที่มีนัยสำคัญแล้วเป็นประโยชน์ต่อแรงงานอันแรกเลยเนี่ยเราพบว่าถ้าเราดูแต่ก่อนเนี้ยเมื่อก่อนไม่เคยมีบางโรงแทบจะบางโรงไม่มีคณะกรรมการสวัสดิการด้วยนะคะแต่โรงที่มีก็ใช้ให้แต่แรงงานไทยในขณะที่ใช้แรงงานข้ามชาติจำนวนมากก็ไม่เคยให้แรงงานข้ามชาติเข้ามาร่วมเป็นคณะกรรมการสวัสดิการเลยพอเราทำ Seafood GLP เลยเกิดโครงการนี้ขึ้นมานะคะเกิดอันนี้ขึ้นมาคือให้แรงงานข้ามชาติเนี่ยเข้ามาเป็นคณะกรรมการสวัสดิการอันนี้สำคัญมากๆเลยเพราะเข้ามาด้วยความสมัครใจเองแล้วก็มาอย่างถูกต้องมีการเลือกตั้งด้วยโดยคนของเขาเองเลย
Implementation of the seafood good labor practices also delivers other practical benefits to workers.
ทำวีซ่าเรื่องวีซ่าแล้วก็เรื่องวอปาเมทแล้วก็เรื่องค่าใช้จ่ายที่ว่าตรวจสุขภาพบริษัทออกให้ทุกอย่างค่ะค่ะแล้วก็อันนี้ทุกปีนะคะตั้งแต่มาอยู่ปีแรกนี่3 ปีค่ะ
Since the EU lifted the yellow card in 2019, Thai seafood processors have continued to strengthen the industry. The seafood good labor practices have brought together different groups to work collaboratively, leading to long-lasting improvements across the sector. Businesses have become more compliant, competitive, and committed to decent work for their employees. Thailand's seafood processing industry has shown how sustainability and accountability can be delivered to the benefit of all.
So if I can turn to you and ask, this case study shows how greater participation of migrant workers in the workplace has strengthened a major export sector. But from your perspective as a trade union leader, what role can workers' organizations play in supporting fairer, more sustainable jobs, enterprises, supply chains across the Asia-Pacific.
Sorry, thank you for the question. Yeah, the Thailand case shows, I think it's the importance of the parties' involvement and the cooperation. Yeah, and from my view, perspective as from a workers' unions organization, I think the workers' organizations play an important and very vital role in fair. In building fair and more sustainable supply chains, especially in the region, Asia and the Pacific. And also, I want to highlight here there's some main roles maybe important for the trade unions. I think the first, unions help ensure the workers' voices. When workers can organize, they can speak up about their unsafe working conditions, safe wage violations, or facing maybe some discriminations and demand how improve their situations. Second, from the trade union or workers' organizations support workers' education and awarenesses. Once the well-informed workforce is essential for responsible supply chains, many unions have trained many factory workers on occupational safety and also chemical maybe issues. And this is not only protect for the protect workers, but also helps factories comply with the international standards set by buyers. And third, workers' organizations play a key role in monitoring, negotiation, and dialogue. Especially the collective bargaining is the important role of the trade unions, workers' organizations. And lastly, but not least, unions advocate stronger policies in all levels, national, regional, and global levels. So the participation and workers' representatives play more fair, but also more resilient and competitive in the supply chain factory industry. And also, can I share Mongolian one case? Let me share with you the one example of Mongolia, my country. It's the supply chain issue is not far from Mongolia, of course, in every country. In the case, the case is about truck drivers. Yeah. The trade unions stepped in to address the serious labor risks in a critical export supply chain. Mongolia is one of the world's largest exporter of coal, particularly to China. And now there are approximately 10,000 drivers, workers, but many of them subcontracted are responsible to hauling coal from the mines in South Gobi region of Mongolia to the border. These drivers are key link in the international energy supply chain, but for years, many years, they have been working under the extreme conditions. Drivers were spending days, sometimes weeks, waiting at loading points and border crossing. Without access or proper rest areas, toilets, or shelters. Their working hours were extensive and unregulated. So in that case, from the trade union, Mongolian trade unions, we cooperated with the ILO within the project Bridge 2. I focused on the informal economy, and we organized outreach sessions in it's the one Gobi Aimak, the heart of the coal transport corridor. These sessions were based on not only the Mongolian labor regulations, but also we tried to introduce them ILO fundamental principles, including the elimination of forced labor and the right to safe working conditions. We think that as a result of this, it was the several times sessions, and employers begin to recognize the seriousness of the issues. Some committed of the improving working conditions, while drivers and union reps become better informed about their rights. Of course, the achievements, maybe key achievements, wasn't just dramatic in the change overnight, but the shift was visible. And they start cooperate, and the parties took their responsibilities, and also the forced labor risk was there very high, so coal transport were no longer, in this sector, it is no longer a hidden issue. They were openly discussed, and the actors began to take responsibility. So from this case, maybe I would say the supply chains is not only the poor country, more in only one particular place. It's everywhere, and we can work together. And like in case of the Thailand, we can achieve some achievements. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the very vivid reminder of the role of unions in the front line of organising and protecting workers, and supporting them in their enabling right, which of course is the basis to achieve all other rights. We're coming to the last 10 minutes of the session, and what I'd like to do is to show you one more story of change. This one comes from Nepal, and then I'll throw the floor open, because it would be remiss of me if I didn't ask you if anyone wished to make a reflection or a comment, or link to your own experiences or the issues discussed at this forum. Our main purpose was to report back, as we were asked to do from the ILO forum, but we would welcome any comments that anyone has to say before the close too. So let's have the Nepal story.
Nepal's tea is gaining global recognition for its quality, but its journey to international markets isn't just about flavor, it's about fairness and safety. The Central Tea Cooperative Federation, representing over 100 cooperatives, is leading the charge to strengthen the tea supply chain. With support from the ILO's Safety and Health for All flagship program, it has helped raise OSH awareness and establish worker, employer, safety and health committees across Nepal's tea farms.
स्वास्थ्य र सुरक्षा भनेको यो रहेछ भन्ने पनि केही जानेका थिएनौँ। हामीले त मात्र यही चियाको मुना टिप्ने कसले पारिश्रमिक रोज कति दिन्छ त्यही मात्रै हामीलाई सोच आउँथ्यो।
Changes including protective footwear, first aid stations, and fire safety drills have helped reduce injuries, improve health, and boost morale.
काम गर्दा बुट लगाउनु पर्छ, एप्रोन लगाउनु पर्दो रहेछ, डोको यसरी बोक्दा टाउको दुख्ने समस्या हुँदो रहेनछ, अनि औँलामा टेप टाल्दा औँला फुट्ने सम्भावना हुँदैन, बाटो सजिलो बनाउँदा चोटपटक नलाग्ने त्यस्तै।
These efforts paid real dividends. By aligning with international labor standards, the cooperative is not just protecting its workers, it's expanding for the first time into global markets.
फेयर ट्रेड प्रमाणीकरण प्राप्त गरेका छौँ र त्यो फेयर ट्रेड प्रमाणीकरण प्राप्त गरिसके पछाडि हाम्रो संस्थाको चिया तयारी चियालाई चाहिँ फ्रान्सको बजारमा बजारीकरण गर्न सफल भएका छौँ। जब हामीले फेयर ट्रेड लोगो अंकित चिया हामीले चाहिँ बिक्री वितरण गर्ने बित्तिकै हामीलाई चाहिँ बोनस त्यहाँका व्यापारीहरूले चाहिँ फेयर ट्रेड बोनस पठाउनु भएको छ र जुन बोनस प्राप्त भइसके पछाडि हाम्रो चिया कृषकहरू साथसाथै उहाँहरूका कामदारहरूसम्मलाई पनि त्यो फेयर ट्रेडको हामीले चाहिँ सहयोग उपलब्ध गराएका छौँ। यसरी ठुलो एउटा सहयोग पुग्दै आएको अवस्था छ।
Nepal's tea industry is proving that safer, healthier work leads to greater opportunity for everyone.
Okay, so let me throw the floor open. Does anybody wish to make a contribution or ask a question of the panelists, or make a link to the issues discussed here? Yes, please.
Thank you very much. It was a great session. I'm from Rajasthani Wangasamunkun. I am a youth advocate. And as young people, we have been entering the workforce, have been working in labor in all kinds of jobs. And I would like to ask about, in this kind of changing world, how can we ensure that all our rights are fulfilled are exercised in the changing world, we're in climate, in changing climate, and also changing the way technology has been revolutionizing in AI, in artificial intelligence, and how could we truly advance this kind of decent work and just transition that is human rights at the center with young people and children? Thank you.
Great question. We'll come to that. Is there any more questions? If we just take 2 or 3 together, please.
Thank you. I'm Lucia from the ASEAN Australia Counter-Trafficking Program. My question's more at the pointy end of things, and I was interested particularly around the intersection between Labour Inspectorate and law enforcement, and how and when is it appropriate for the two to connect, particularly in relation to forced labour in some of these really high-risk sectors. Thank you.
Great. Do we have one more? Okay. So, Jerome, should we go first to the question about law enforcement and where it meets the enforcement of fundamental rights, but particularly forced labour in supply chains where you find it prevalent, and then we'll pick up the multifaceted question about inclusion of youth.
To respond to the question, the importance actually of strengthening inspection system in any country, in any economy, is that it will ensure that workers are protected, that workers are provided with fundamental rights at work, including, of course, that they are not, or they should not be engaged in forced labor. So the role of the inspectors, of course, is to ensure that all workers in whatever industry you are in, you must be protected. And the workers, as we all know, are key to productivity of an enterprise and of an industry, which is actually part of the supply chain. So I think that's where that's the importance of why we need to strengthen inspection.
So, would you like to also comment on this? A big issue, of course, for trade unions.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. From my side, I have just some input about the labor inspections. In our case, maybe in Mongolian case, we have of course, in all countries have the two. We can see the two fields, maybe the state inspections and also the workers and workers trade unions inspection. I think it's the important to connection or the cooperation with these inspections in the company level and also the state level. From our case in Mongolia, from the Mongolian trade unions, we are now working on the trade union reps policy, how we can connect with the, efficiently cooperate with the state inspections. And also, we are trying to ratify the ILO Conventions 29 and 289 on the labor inspections. 29, as you know, the Mongolia is the huge agricultural country, so that's why we choose to ratify the 20 convention, also the 29. And about the forced labor, maybe maybe it is in our case, maybe we will try to cooperate with the law enforcement organizations such as the police or prosecutors to identify the enforced cases for the forced labor cases, because in the forced labor issues, usually it's the hidden, and also it's sometimes there is the lack of the power of the just labor inspections. There is some maybe some investigation or some kind of special activities we needed to carry out. So I think it's important to cooperate with others. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to pick up on that theme and some discussion in our forum, as you say, at the sharp end, I think we all know that forced labor tends to be way down the supply chain in more hidden areas. It tends to be vulnerable workers, including migrant workers. And I go back to the point I made earlier about silos and breaking out of silos. And I think we've had experience in the ILO of supporting our constituents in approaches to realize fundamental rights, often working with the private sector as well. And it's about the connection between understanding what's private action to promote compliance, and where does that meet with enforcement and ringing the bell to protect rights holders when there are egregious abuses of rights that can only and should only be followed by enforcement agencies. So that connectivity between the private and public in these supply chain approaches is fundamental, and the involvement of workers' organizations and employers' organizations in remedy is just key. So connecting the dots is a big part of it. But let me not neglect the really challenging question about access to work for young people in this rapidly changing world of work, which is being shaped, of course, by technology, AI, as you said, which is just so pertinent to this moment and this region. I mean, we live in a region where we've seen two countries, Nepal and Indonesia, very recently with catalytic protests by young people around issues which include access to work and young people being coming onto the labour market and just insufficient opportunities. And it's a challenge, I'd say, across the world. I can hardly think of a member state we have that doesn't want support in this area. But I think your question was, what do we do? And I think a lot of our focus is around skills, and that's super important. Connectivity from education to the world of work, and the appropriateness of skills, and skilling young people to take advantage of new technologies, as you mentioned, but also new investment opportunities. So a lot of our work is about trying to be at the place when new jobs are created, where there's new investment. There's a lot of our discussion with investment organizations and banks that give access particularly to women and youth to work, to advantage them as new technologies come, because we know that new technologies tend to disadvantage women and can disadvantage youth if they're not equipped. So a lot of our work is to try and bring our constituents together to bring that into focus, and so that women and youth that enter the workplace, young people that enter the workplace, are more likely to stick in that job and succeed in that job. But there's a range of other responses that we're involved in. I think trade unions, organizations of young people and workers is very important. Understanding in the enforcement system of their challenges, super important. So I think there are a range of different things we do. I can't possibly do justice to your question. It's a great question, and one that's sort of exercising the international labour organisations and our constituents. But I'll happily talk more to you about it off after session, because we're just timed out after 5 minutes. So I'm going to conclude by thanking my colleagues on the panel, who I think both did a great job. Thank you. And fitting into your very busy schedules. And by thanking you for listening to us. Our purpose here was to share some of the outcomes of our forum over the last 2 days. I hope that's been enjoyable and useful. And I'll close by just thanking you for your participation. Thanks very much.